So, welcome back to the FCS podcast, Tristan.
Thanks. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute. I feel like I interviewed you initially when I started the podcast.
We very first started it, and we were both back in California, and much earlier in our journeys of, I don't know, actually becoming an adult or something. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
Actually being a real person, yeah.
Yeah, and we've still managed to. You moved across the country, and then I moved across the country, but only 3 hours apart.
Yeah, it worked out pretty nicely.
No, yeah, and I'm really grateful that you've been in that you've played a huge part in my recovery journey. Honestly,
I am also quite thrilled to have you as a friend. To have you as it's been step for step the whole way for the entirety of slightly more than 4 years now for both of us, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you just hit 4 years. I hit.
So did you?
I hit 4 years 12 days ago. You hit 4 years 2 days ago.
I did.
How does that feel?
I mean, the same. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. Like, holy crap, because I'm the type of person that can't keep his teeth in his mouth, let alone like be gainfully employed and be sober. But here we are, and it's been a journey, and it's been enlightening, and I've made some fuck ups along the way, but that's life. It's been great.
I started feeling really good when I realized I didn't have to be perfect.
It's really nice just realizing that, like, I'm literally just a human and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay.
I feel like I feel like you played a huge part in that for me. Not that I wanted to make the same mistakes you did, but
I mean,
but I was like, okay.
Made some pretty awesome mistakes as
Like-
far as mistakes go.
I was like,
It wasn't a bad time. That's all I'm saying.
but it made me realize I was like, okay, the people in my life and the people that I almost like slightly put on a pedestal are still human.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it is nice to see, because I think everyone, particularly in a world that we've kind of both now entered, where you're attempting to be a professional and you're attempting to, build a life that is, worth living and enjoyable to live, where, maybe eventually, hypothetically, we could have the freedom to go about the world and do whatever it is we want. We've got to put this face on of professionalism. And the vast majority of our mentors and the people that we look up to are also people who have been involved in this professional life and this professional world for a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
So the first, especially couple years of knowing these people, is seeing this manufactured and manicured facade. And then to be able to, like, genuinely get to know people and genuinely get to know oneself and be like, oh no, we're literally all just sacks of meat with a salty, misfiring brain controlling us. It's okay to just be human and be real and make mistakes and learn through trial and error and all the other things.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you got into recovery. We both met in treatment. We mentioned that. But what really brought you to treatment?
The time where I actually got sober?
Yes.
So August 9th of 2021, I was in a treatment center local to me. It's now been closed for fraud or something like that. It was Just Believe in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. I'd been there numerous times, but it was way too close to home. Every time I went there, I think the longest I stayed was 4 days. I never made it through the detox. And I made it there one more time through, family pressure and social pressure and wanting to make an appearance of doing well. And I made it about 18 hours before we were out smoking a cigarette in the parking lot. And I just walked off while the tech's back was turned because I knew my drug dealer was about 8 blocks away. Except this is northern Pennsylvania, where it is humid and hot in the middle of August. And I wanted to die because I'm detoxing, walking this 8 blocks uphill. And I walked over to his house. I no longer even remember his name, but I knocked on his door. And he wasn't home. And I found out later that he had moved in with his drug dealer in a different town about 20 miles away in the 18 hours that I had been in detox. And I was like, well, this is some bullshit. So I walked back to the treatment center, but along the way I stopped at a little convenience store called Turkey Hill, and I found some old couple who let me use their phone. And I attempted to call this treatment center, and I clicked an advertisement instead and ended up speaking with some girl whose name was Katira, who actually used to work in the office that is right there. And she was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but maybe I can help you. And, 12 hours later, I was on a plane to California. And the first 5 days, I was everyone's worst nightmare and wanted to leave. And thankfully, I was 3,000 miles from home, 13 miles up a twisty mountain road in Topanga, California, where I'd never been. And the people around me were like, sure, walk out, have fun. Where are you going? I was like,
that was a beautiful thing about that treatment center. So many people wanted to leave because we're addicts and we don't want to get sober. And it was just amazing because we were so high up on a mountain. It was like, I might have to stay.
Like I would die by the time I made it to Skid Row to find my drugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no. So I stayed. And
what do you think was different about this time of treatment? How many times have you been to treatment before?
I believe this was my 7th time.
Yeah.
It was probably only my 2nd or 3rd time actually completing a program. The first time was a facility in Pennsylvania, which was well regarded, but I talked my way into just doing the outpatient level of care. And I was released early on good behavior, basically, because I had a job lined up in Washington, D.C., and I was 21 at the time, and needless to say, not actually having any recovery, moving down to make way too much money was a recipe for relapse. I did relapse. I ended up attending work for a couple months, but also once or twice a week taking the 12-hour round trip from Washington, D.C. to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania to get drugs because I was too stupid, despite the money I was making, to buy enough drugs to like last me a week or two.
Yeah.
Just buy like $100 worth of drugs, and I was also too much of a pussy to just walk around Washington, D.C. and find drugs that I'm sure would have been way better. The other time I completed was a Medicaid facility in Pennsylvania where, that place is just stretched thin. They do their best, but there's 350 people possible there and only a few therapists. So really easy to like talk your way in circles and make it look like you're doing well and get out early. And that's what I did after 21 days. And immediately, as soon as I got in the car with my cell phone back, was like hitting up my friends who I knew had some meth or heroin or whatever. But this time what was different was a little bit of a more individualized situation, a little bit more attention, and 1 or 2 people who just weren't having my bullshit. You know what I mean? I mean, there was Patrick, who's been on this podcast before, who I swear, I'm not even kidding, he worked 5 16-hour days in a row just to keep my ass at that treatment center. And he wasn't like, no, you can't leave, but he sat with me and he talked with me, and he was like, I had the first little breakthrough with him when I was like, fuck you guys, I want to leave. And he was like, okay. And I was like, well, maybe not. And then I came back later and was like, hey, can I call my dad not to try to leave, but because I want to tell him where the rest of my drugs are because they're calling my name. And he was like, okay, all right. And then like 12 hours later, I was like, actually, fuck you, I want to leave again. And
the back and forth of, wanting sobriety and not.
And then that last time, the last intervention, it was probably the last intervention that they were willing to have with me. Rather than just Patrick, it was also Patrick's supervisor, and she was the first one who didn't try to tell me what to do. She just told me what she had done.
Yeah.
And was like, you can have a life too. You just need to do these things and not shoot up dope anymore. I was like, I can do that? I cannot. And
there's like a possibility of me not shooting up heroin anymore. No, it really is mind-blowing when you realize that people, because I had almost the same experience. It was so motivating to see somebody share their story with like being deep in addiction and like now having a beautiful life with long-term recovery.
Yeah, and having them be open and honest about it, right?
Yeah.
Like not in like a too much self-disclosure kind of way, because that can be a little bit detrimental in treatment centers, but it being able to be like, hey, I started life here. My own decisions brought me here, but then I did these things, and now you can see what my life is. And being like, oh, I do see it. You're not just a perfect figure who doesn't know what I'm talking about. You're somebody who has lived and experienced and breathed the same kind of thing that I have. And for the first time, it just kind of hit me. Like, I guess I just actually heard it for the first time. Like, not like I had literally heard it before, but I actually listened, kind of internalized it for the first time, and it just a little switch flipped, and I went, oh my God, I genuinely don't need to do this anymore. What can I do? Tell me what to do, and I will do it. And that person and several of their friends continued to tell me what to do for a long period of time, and to this day, if that person calls me and says, hey, we need to talk and I need you to do this, I listen. Yeah. I might be like, roll my eyes a little bit, but I still do it. You know what I mean? Because I have a life today because of their advice and because of stop listening to my own brain. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It's very frequently I look at my life and I'm like, I'm not sure how I got here, but like,
dude, you're married now. You have a fucking kid on the way.
I am. I have a house.
You have a house?
It's
like,
weird.
that's nuts.
I couldn't keep my teeth. I have a house and a mortgage that I can pay. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And like the crazy thing, and I guess I speak fairly often about this whenever, you know, somebody asks me to speak about this kind of thing, is that like the major blessing and the major miracle there with the house isn't the fact that I have a house, right? This is worldly possession. That's fine. That's great. But the really cool thing about it is like I closed on the house on December 12th of 2024. And then to get that house, to get approval for the mortgage, I had to go to the CFO of the company I worked for, and he had to write me a letter stating some things so that the mortgage would approve, and they did. And then 13 days after I closed, they shut the fucking company down. And it didn't need to be a crisis.
Yeah.
And that's the strain, and it gave me this new perspective on like, nothing about recovery or any program that brings it is going to solve all of your worldly problems. Didn't solve all of my worldly problems, but what it did do is flip my perspective to a position where almost everything that used to be a problem doesn't need to be anymore. And that's the coolest thing. And like one of the ways that I there's a story that I tell also frequently about like, you know, being discontent at a very early age. Like that is just my base state. My sister woke me up by putting a live box turtle that she had found outside. This is in, you know, the 1990s in my bed because she thought it was cool. She thought I would like to wake up that way. And I am the type of person where, left to my own accord, you wake me up at 11 a.m. and my immediate thought is, no, fuck this. I want to go back into the abyss of sleep. So needless to say, waking up with the turtle, I was not happy. Threw it across the room. The turtle survived. I promise.
Poor
Also,
turtle.
I'm sorry. I was 9 or 10 years old. I was not aware of what I was doing. I'm not an animal abuser. But the dichotomy there, the difference there is that today, with that same piece that makes it so like, okay, that thing that should have been a crisis with the house didn't necessarily need to be. I now have a cat who wakes me up at 6 a.m. every morning by like stretching on my chest with his claws like, Dad, it is time to feed me. And the fact that that cat, I don't want to kill him and he doesn't get launched across the room is a smaller example, but also a much more like daily and tangible example of like what that kind of peace and like what prioritizing peace and serenity can look like and what that perspective change can look like, where like never in my life was that possible.
Yeah.
Or even the ability to like, I used to have to wake up. I used to have a little wristwatch thing called a Pavlok that would literally shock you awake, and it wouldn't turn off until you either ripped it off your wrist or did a bunch of jumping jacks to get it to turn off.
In
like,
your addiction?
Yeah, for sure, because I just wouldn't wake the fuck up. And now my alarm gets set for 6:15 in the morning, and I do not remember the last time that I actually slept long enough for my alarm to have to go off. And it's not just like I wake up and turn it off and go back to sleep. It's like I wake up and get up, and I'm able to turn off the alarm on my phone before it ever goes off. And that's insane to me, because even as a child, I was never the let me wake up and like have a life kind of person. That's not who I was. And so it's just, I don't know, it's really fucking cool. It's the little things.
You mentioned you were kind of discontent. What do you mean? Because I feel like that's a common thing a lot of people in recovery say before they even touch substances. They typically struggled with like overall discontentedness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was a nature or a nurture thing. I don't know which to blame there.
Yeah.
Or I don't need to understand which to blame there. What I can tell you is that even at an early age, I didn't want to wake up out of bed. I had a lot more enjoyable of a time if I was asleep. The nothingness of sleep was great, or the escape of reading a fantasy book or watching TV or whatever, as long as I wasn't feeling what was going on in here. You know what I mean? And I had issues in high school, let's say, of, I remember very distinctly one girl being like, Tristan, why do you think you're better than everyone? And me being really taken aback, because I absolutely never did think that. I think just my own anxiety, my own discomfort of the world and around other people, and my mind's projection of what other people may be thinking that I'm sure they probably weren't, made me come across as very aloof. And in reality, I was just, you know, terrified and and not comfortable. So I think that's That's just what it is. Like, I'm not, at my very core, I was never, I don't know if it's trauma. I don't know if it's nature. I don't know if it's nurture. I don't know. I was just never quite comfortable in my own skin, especially around other people. And it's still a struggle today. I don't like people. Not my thing. Sometimes I wake. Don't get me wrong. I talked about getting out of bed before my alarm clock goes off at 6:15. But let me be clear: if I don't have work that day, fuck that alarm.
Yeah.
Fuck getting up. Not fuck the cat. I'll get up and feed the cat, and then I will go back to sleep. But the first thought is still like, fuck, I exist. Yeah. But now I have the capability to go, okay.
I'm not at that point yet of self-control with my alarm. Not at all. There's like, I have my moments. There might be like 2 days out of the month where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm getting up and I'm doing things.
Well, I'm attributing it to recovery, but it might actually just be the fact that I'm almost, I'm 32, I'm going to be 33 in a couple weeks, and maybe it's just I've aged out of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm attributing it to recovery when it's not. I have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like it's as you get older, you're actually, I think it takes 30 years of practice to wake up.
Yeah, to actually like, to at least have the appearance of wanting to get up, even if I don't actually want to.
Take me to your addiction. How long were you in active drug addiction?
I guess I first started with marijuana, as many people do. But the first like 5 or 6 or 7 times that I smoked it might have been as many as a dozen times. This was probably just because it was really shitty weed, but I didn't feel anything. And I was very well aware of the fact that my mother was extremely alcoholic. And so, I went around to my group of friends at the time and was like, guys, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this isn't really what we should be doing. And that didn't work out for me. And I did stop for a little while, but then eventually I had a girlfriend at the time who was like, well, I've never really smoked weed and I want to smoke weed with you. And I was like, all right, bet.
Yeah.
And it was immediately off to the races because I actually felt it for the first time. And maybe that was like the universe out there trying to be like, hey, bud, you don't really want to, we're going to cut this off here, give you the chance to not be a fuck up. But, I went back to it, and it was a matter of a month before I was stealing my girlfriend's weed and stealing my mom's weed and doing other things that I really shouldn't be doing. And it just, that same feeling of this caved in, sunken, discontent feeling went away when there's some kind of substance where now I don't have to go about my life and do things in order to feel okay. I don't have to do the uncomfortable thing. I don't have to put in the work. I could just smoke this fucking joint and feel fine. That seems like a miracle. That seems like an absolute cheat code. And then, gradually played around with other drugs and with alcohol and eventually discovered, what would be my love, which was opiates. And what I discovered, it was roxycodone, which they don't really, prescribe much anymore, but it's what the little blue pressed pills that are all over, the fentanyl pills, are designed to look like, the M boxes and things like that. I started on them, and I discovered that I could do this little tiny piece. They were about the size of a pencil eraser. I could do a quarter of one of those at first and go about my day in the way that I really genuinely thought the normal people did. I didn't understand that normal people did experience anxiety and were unmotivated. They just had the discipline to be able to work through those things, and they had the capabilities to be able to, process those emotions. And I was never taught those skills, or I never sought to learn those skills, so I found instead the artificial solution. And eventually that led to heroin, and then eventually, heroin dealers don't exactly want to front you, and I'm not working, and I've stolen everything that can be stolen from the people I love, and, I'm too much of a pussy to steal from people that I don't know. Then meth comes into the picture, because meth dealers are a little bit more free with their stuff, and also, now you're a tweaker, you're up on meth, you're gonna go find ways to make money and pay that back. Way different than heroin, where you're dope sick and you don't want to move, you just want to beg for money, please. Yeah, dude,
And you were an IV.
I was an IV user, yes. I kind of lucked out as far as IV users go. I never blew out a whole bunch of veins. I used one vein for the entirety of, I think I first touched a needle in about 2014, 2015. I got sober in 2021. I used the same vein the whole time.
Wow.
There is still a significant scar there, but it was never an abscess. It never went bad. I could hit it every single time. And that scar, I'm sure, will be there for the rest of my life. And that was, you know, a whole different animal in and of itself. It's weird, actually. It kind of brought me to an understanding at one point. You know, I grew up in like the early 2000s, and everyone was emo kids, and there was a large wave of people self-harming and cutting themselves, and I never really understood it. And then one day, I had no dope and was just shooting up water because it made me feel better, and I just kind of looked at the needle, and I was like, oh, I get it. I'm doing the same thing right now that I never used to understand with the people who self-harm or who cut or who burn or whatever it might be. There is no benefit drug-wise from sticking myself with a needle full of water, but here I am doing it anyway, and it kind of, you know, correlated and made me understand a different struggle, which I had never personally experienced myself.
Are you kind of like comparing addiction to self-harm, or was just specifically with the needle?
Specifically with the needle with no actual drugs in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all you're feeling is the prick in your skin and a little bit of pain and a little bit of blood, and your body releases some of the endorphins. And I went, oh, wow, this is... And I'm not by any means saying it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's the closest thing that I had ever experienced to it, and it made me understand and have a greater compassion for why people did it in the first place.
So before going to treatment, were you, like, both using heroin and meth?
Yes, absolutely.
What did the worst look like?
I mean, listen, I wasn't living at home. I was living in, you know, random other people's houses with other drug addicts and stealing from families and doing whatever I had to do and making up whatever lies to make it look like I had, like, a halfway decent life. Well, I mean, and, like, I am absolutely delusional. I'm the type of person to wear a button-down shirt and think that I look fine while my teeth are rotting out of my head. Like, completely delusional. One interesting one, an officer, I believe it was Officer Kyle Gilmartin, who unfortunately then got shot in the face during a different incident a couple of years ago. He is still alive, but severely harmed. You know, he'll never be the same. He's a very, you know, he's a nice guy. Never held anything against any of the police who arrested me. But anyway, I was with one of my friends at a McDonald's in Scranton, Pennsylvania, because his phone only worked on Wi-Fi. And I had a needle full of meth and water that had already been mixed up all day, and I went into the bathroom of the McDonald's to shoot up, and this poor guy, all he did was smoke weed. He had no idea that I was about to go in and do this. And right beforehand, there had been a car full of people that I kind of distantly recognized. Next to me was somebody who had walked up to the window, and I was like, all right, you know, whatever. So anyway, I'm in the bathroom and in the McDonald's in the stall, and it happens to be the one time that I can't hit myself the first time, and I hear a knock on the stall door, and I'm like, well, that's weird. And I'm like, 1 second, and a cop crawls under the stall door, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, are you shooting up with toilet water? And I'm like, I swear to God, like, I'm a scumbag, but I'm not that much of a scumbag. Like, this has been mixed up in this needle for hours. I'm not shooting up a toilet. And needless to say, they arrested me. And, yeah, so that was an interesting time.
I got a visual of that whole story.
Just trying to stick a needle in my arm, and all of a sudden there's a cop crawling under the door. So this is the story that I put together in my head. I don't know if it's true or not. I think that car full of other people that had been next to me, I think that was perhaps somebody facilitating a buy with an undercover officer, because there's no other reason why that man would have walked up to the window, taken something from him. 5 minutes later, I'm not doing anything illegal other than having drugs on me. I'm in the bathroom, and all of a sudden there's 5 cops in the bathroom, and one of them's crawling under the stall door, other than they recognized me and went, oh, that kid's a drug addict. I bet he's about to go shoot dope. Yeah. So... yeah, that was an experience. I think that was in 2017. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I mean, I've done a lot of really shitty things. I don't know that there's any one particular bottom. I don't know if you had asked me then if I had hit my bottom, if I would have said yes. I don't have any one defining moment that made me go, oh, wow, I need to genuinely get help.
Did you know you were a drug addict?
Yeah.
Like, was it, like, because...
What the fuck?
No, because I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, that took me a while to come to terms with. Same with, like, a few other people. Like, somebody I just interviewed, like, he was like, me, a drug? Like, no. I am far from somebody who struggles with addiction, because we have this idea of what an addict looks like. So, you just, like, knew, and you're like, yeah, whatever.
I mean, I don't know that I understood all of the implications of that about, like, because I never studied addiction. I never really looked at what it was like. I certainly still had a high and mighty attitude that thought maybe I was better than other people, but meanwhile, my teeth are black and rotten and falling out of my head. You know what I mean? It'd be weeks at a time that I wouldn't shower. I knew I was addicted to drugs. Certainly, I couldn't go an hour without sticking a needle in my arm. But I don't know if I understood that I was, a drug addict in the sense that we in recovery now look at what addiction is or what alcoholism is or anything like that. But I definitely knew that I was addicted to drugs. I mean, by the time I was on the needle, I knew it. You know what I mean? But it's also it's a little bit different when you're in the midst of it. There's never that thought that comes that's like, gee, like this is a really terrible thing. It's just chasing the next good feeling, the next good feeling, the next good feeling, because at my natural state, there was no good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
What I've since kind of discovered is that no shit. I mean, the life that I was living, there was nothing good to feel good about. That's not to say that there wasn't great things in my family life, because there absolutely were. I mean, despite any problems that might have been there in my family life, there were very loving and caring parents and a very loving, caring sister. Many, many opportunities that I could have utilized that I didn't, and the vast majority of the reason, at least in my adult life, why I didn't feel great was because I made poor decisions or no decisions at all.
Yeah.
And taking some accountability, taking some action, doing some other things, it's remarkable, like, oh, wow, if I actually don't do fucked up shit to other people, like, life gets a little bit better. If I do make good choices for my life, life gets a little bit better.
Why do you think so many people need multiple runs in treatment centers? Like, how come I went to treatment once and now I have 4 years in recovery and sober, and then other people need to keep going to treatment and don't get a hang of it? Like, there's a willingness, they keep going back, but what do you think they're not getting? Which adds on to the stigma of addiction.
I understand where people are coming from when they say relapse is a part of recovery. And I think that is because a lot of people attempt to recover either before they are ready, or they are given, maybe not given inadequate tools, but absorb an inadequate amount of the tools that they are given. I think you and I lucked out where we had a really good group of people. We had some mentors who were very passionate, who had a very good way of helping you see yourself in the plan of action laid out before you. To where it made sense, to where it clicked, to where it was something that we could follow. I think a lot of people, we also had a strong community. We stuck with each other for the entire time, and not just you and I, but the rest of our group of people, several others of whom have just hit 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? Like, we had this group of people where if one of us started to falter, we were in this sober community. We weren't hanging out with the people who weren't trying to do the thing. We were constantly surrounded by the people who either were doing the thing or were at least trying to do the thing. And we had that constant little bit of a nudge back in the right direction when we started to stray. And we were inspired and became passionate because of the people we met and the way that their personalities jived with ours, I think. But I think a lot of people who go to treatment, I mean, the treatment industry is an industry. You know what I mean? And I think... And it's so bound by what insurance dictates that this must be, something that falls under a clinical or a medical category. And there's not much about connecting with someone on a personal level that a person can do as a counselor. There are ethical guidelines that restrict that. So you can give the person the advice, but you can't give them the genuine, personal, heartfelt inspiration. As somebody who has a license or a degree in counseling or anything like that I think is really integral and necessary. I think that's why AA and NA are so successful, because those people are not bound by any of those ethics. They're able to say you're a piece of shit when you're being a piece of shit, or they're able to, actually form genuine friendships with you, which you can't do in treatment. I don't know. That, and the other part is, no matter how much somebody really desperately wants it, they have to want it more than the negative feelings affect them. Yeah. And that's hard. I mean, I was in and out for a decade of 7 different treatment centers before it finally clicked that, like, oh, it doesn't matter how bad I feel. I can just keep going anyway.
We let our emotions and feelings dictate and rule our entire lives.
For sure. Which is weird, because I'm not a very emotional person, at least in an outward sense. But what was going on in here, this discomfort, especially that abnormal of chasing that numbness that I was chasing, became my normal.
Mm-hmm.
So anything other than absolutely numb or absolute euphoria felt horrible and unbearable. So I went back and I went back and I went back and I went back until finally, like, I don't know what clicked. It just clicked that, like, oh, what I feel in here and in here isn't going to make my head explode. It's okay. And I started listening to the things that pissed me off. I stopped thinking that I knew everything. And if somebody gave me a piece of advice, particularly one person in our lives who always said something that pissed me off, when I started listening to that advice, life started to work. And I realized that, like, oh, these things that absolutely piss me off, that don't make sense to my logic, are the things that I genuinely actually need to listen to. Because anything I think I know about how I survived until this point is also contributing to what's killing me. And I believe certain things very deeply, and so when somebody says something that pissed me off, it was going against those things that I had kind of just come to believe without even realizing it throughout my addiction. And so I started to listen to the things that pissed me off. And
what were some of the things that pissed you off? But I know what you mean. Like, as you're older, you're more opinionated. Right. I feel like that was almost the benefit I have. First off, with this platform and getting sober at a young age, I was just so impressionable. Like, you could tell me something and I would believe it because I'm like, I've never heard that. Like, that makes sense almost. Like, I just didn't have many strong opinions because I've barely lived.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have any specific examples. I don't know that I really remember.
Was it just things about yourself?
Yeah, things about myself, things about the way to deal with other people, things about the fact, like, it's, okay to feel these emotions and not freak the fuck out and just sit down and stay, and like a whole bunch of different things. I don't really remember the exact specific situations right now in this moment, but it's now been 4 years and my mind is not what it used to be. I've definitely destroyed a lot of neurons in that decade of doing drugs.
Yeah. I don't even think my brain's at 100%.
No, mine, it's 4 years in, I can tell you my brain is not at 100%. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine who is also my supervisor at work, and genuinely, I do not have original ideas anymore. I remember as a child, when I was like 5 or 6, I had an idea. I was like, reading about solar panels because, listen, my childhood was weird. Like, the random reading material that we had was like the Science News magazine. Okay, so I'd be reading these things. Maybe I was older than 5 or 6. It was probably closer to like 10, and reading about solar panels or something and thinking, well, like, if we can get electricity from light, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get electricity from temperature. And then nowadays, they have developed these things where it's a temperature differential panel, essentially, where during the day, it faces the sun, and the warm air and sun heats up this side, and then the other side faces the cold ground, and there's a small current of electricity which is generated. Then at night, it flips the other way, because now the ground is the warm side, the night sky is the cold side. So all the time, there is some kind of differential which can generate electricity, and that was an idea I had very, very young. I never, had, like, the education or anything to, like, make it happen or anything, but that was something that crossed my mind at a pretty young age, and now it's something that exists. So I used to, at one point, have original ideas.
Yeah.
But now, like, even, being an adult and attempting to forge a life for myself, make sure that, my kids have a good life, something like that. It's like, how do I generate passive income? What would I do if I were to start a business? And blank.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing. I can excel at any position you stick me in, but you need to stick me in it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm not quite sure how to actually become an independent, thoughtful human being again, and I'm sure I'll get there eventually, I hope.
Damn, dude.
But the there's a lot of complex thought that goes on, but not a lot of original thought that goes on, and that concerns me. It is what it is, I guess.
So I feel like in recovery, we've made addicts, I feel like we almost separate them. We separate addicts and everybody else that isn't an addict. We call them like normies and addicts. But like my question is like, what do you think makes addicts, what makes an addict different from other people?
Nothing.
You don't think?
No, I don't. I think at the end of the day,
Not the physical allergy, the mental obsession, anything? You think at the end of the day? Okay.
So
I like this, though.
For my own recovery, I do absolutely. I believe in that abnormal reaction, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know I take something in, the reaction that I have is abnormal. It is not the same as a person who can control it. But I think that it is simply an extreme manifestation of the human condition, okay? So I look at normies, I look at certain people in my life, you know, I see people who isolate themselves to an extreme degree because they have to have some kind of comfort and they haven't learned how to accept the outside world. So they become almost agoraphobic. They just cut people and things out of their life so that they can live in their own little bubble. That's the same thing. The alcoholic, the addict, and the extreme neurotic are all the same fucking person. It's just that the alcoholic and the addict expresses itself through the use of substances. The extreme neurotic expresses himself through mental breakdowns or, you know, the development of schizoaffective disorders or hallucinations or this terror of the outside world. And then there's other normies who spend their entire paycheck on Amazon orders and impulse buying or prostitutes or binge watching television or bed rotting or whatever the latest trend happens to be. I think the only thing which separates the addict and the alcoholic from the person is from the normal person is just the extremeness with which it presents itself to the outside world. And that's also why I kind of think that addicts and alcoholics are kind of the lucky ones, because the rest of, you know, the world is kind of stuck with whatever their expression of the human condition is. Addicts and alcoholics, you either die or find a solution.
Yeah.
Those are your options. And that solution gives me tools that I frankly never would have had otherwise, that were never presented to me in a way that I could digest and comprehend and take action upon prior to entering into recovery. And maybe there are a couple people here and there who genuinely are given these tools in a way that they can digest earlier on in their life. And you know, I hope that I'm able to pass that to my stepdaughter and my as of yet unborn daughter, some kind of comprehension as they grow into the mental capacity to understand these things, that like, no, everything is on you. Like, you know, your feelings originate with you, not with the outside world. You know what I mean? And you are not your feeling. You are an observer of your feeling. Your feeling is a part of you, but your feelings don't need to define you the way that they did me at one time. So yeah, I don't really think there's much difference between the addict and the alcoholic, except for the fact that we found a thing that made us feel really good that also happens to be physically destructive and physically addicting. Just happens to be our outlet that we found. I think that's basically it.
I honestly like that answer.
What about you? What do you think on that one? Where's your head go? What does your head tell you about the difference between the addict, the alcoholic, and the normal person?
I don't think there's a difference with an addict and an alcoholic at all. I just think we for some reason have preferences on how we want to feel. Like, I wanted to always be blacked out and zombie-like, and another person wants to be very sharp and focused and be up for days at a time. Yeah. And that sounds, you know, like repulsive to me. I want to be like, you know, asleep. Like, yeah, like mental obsession aside and like physical allergy aside.
I think that normies also have the same mental obsession, though. It's just over different things, right? This is something that one of my mentors, or actually one of my sponsors, had for me was like, oh, okay, cool, you're over the obsession of the drugs.
Oh, yeah.
What are you obsessing on now?
No,
because
100%.
The state of obsession is not limited to substances. And the same thing applies to business leaders. You think Jeff Bezos doesn't have an obsession?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you get to that point? Elon Musk doesn't get to the point where he is at without having an obsession. So, but the difference is that sometimes obsessions are, you know, accepted or even encouraged in society. This tycoon of industry, this building new things and you know, racing for new heights and collecting large sums of money. And now there is a general public discourse where, you know, we're starting to frown a lot on people who collect large sums of money. At least the general populace of America is, in my experience. Maybe that's an echo chamber, I don't know. But there's always an obsession. It's just, it may not have directed itself towards alcohol and drugs.
No, yeah.
So I think that is another part of addiction which is absolutely present in the everyday person. Think about how many people obsess over their ex how do stalkers happen? You know what I mean?
How do stalkers happen? No, that's true. No, yeah, and I've even found myself obsessing over different things over various periods of times in my sobriety. Yeah, exes, sex, relationships,
Made some
or
good
TV.
mistakes.
TV, like games. Like I definitely have my phases, and I've definitely had my phases in recovery of obsessing over different things, and then I realize, yeah, it's not really so healthy. I become aware of it, and I try and take the contrary action. So
sure, and that's an excellent thing, and that's the the spiritual progress, I guess, or the human progress that at least I attempt to seek, and that many others attempt to seek, and I'm not sure that's so prevalent in a lot of the society today.
yeah,
This attempt to self-analyze and to get analyzation from other people, and to be able to be aware of ourselves and aware of our habits, and to try to improve on a constant basis. And it's cool, but there's I think large subsets of the population that have never been exposed to that concept.
What do you think the hardest part of your recovery has been?
Quitting nicotine.
Really?
Straight up. As I'm sure you'll see in this video, I've been vaping I've attempted to quit several times, and I will be successful for days or weeks or up to a month, and then
A month is crazy, and then going back?
and then my little addict brain goes, that would be fun. There's an effect that I could obtain, which is desirable. And go back to it, and it's terrible because I know it's going to kill me. But here I am anyway.
No, it's definitely one of the hard. Almost everybody I know in recovery uses nicotine, and I've heard it's harder to quit than heroin. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, heroin it's a lot less socially acceptable. I think that's one, and you can't do it like all the fucking time. You know what I mean? Like with
Yeah,
a
with
vape,
like
you
a
can-
vape, it's like I am in a meeting, I can vape.
Yeah,
I'm in an airplane, we're not supposed to, but I'm gonna vape.
in this office, in work, in
yes,
whatever the
who
fuck,
cares?
I could fucking vape, and it's even cigarettes are a little bit less nasty because although they smell a lot worse, you've got 7 to 15 times a day where you walk outside for a cigarette instead of every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, have you experienced like nicotine withdrawals?
Yeah, they're not too terrible. You know what I
Really?
mean? Like they kind of suck, but like it's not like heroin withdrawal. It's just they're a little bit more. First off, I can't exactly quit my life to go find a treatment center to lock me up for 35 days or 45 days to get away from nicotine. And second, it's very, very persistent. You know what I mean? It's been a habit that's been there for a long time. It's also
Yeah.
been there throughout all my recovery. The initial reason why I said quitting nicotine is one of the hardest is 4 years in, the only moments where I've had a thought come and be like, you could go pick up some dope would be 5 or 6 days into not vaping.
Really?
Because now it's like, oh shit, I'm not getting this feeling that I used to get, this altered perception of reality, which, over abusing nicotine can give me. I'm not getting that. So what's my brain's automatic go-to for what the next thing is? Well, it's the other psycho-altering substances that I used to do. And then, I'm far enough along and consistent enough in the things that I do in my recovery to be like, well, that's retarded. That's not going to happen. Like, go to a meeting, whatever. But yeah, genuinely, the only times that like the thought has come up without being immediately blocked has been while attempting to quit nicotine.
I remember also when you had your mouth surgery to get your new teeth, I remember you saying that you, like the excruciating pain made you think of relapse.
Yeah, it would absolutely make me think of relapse or at least want some relief from the pain. But that was also a delusion because like I had a lot of tooth pain, jaw pain, whatever, throughout my addiction as my teeth were rotting out of my head. And as much as heroin is an opiate and opiates apparently painkillers, I don't really agree with that. The pain is still there. You just don't really give a fuck that it's there.
Yeah.
Like that's what opiates do. It's not that the pain goes away. You just stop caring that it's there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that sucked. There was a lot of intensive surgery. For the record, since this is on a podcast, basically, when I went to treatment, teeth are black, rotten, falling out of my head. A lot of them have just fallen out except for the roots, periodontal disease and infection in the jaw and everything, to where I had to have 24 teeth extracted. I have 6 remaining. I have this canine, which is a crown, this canine, which is a crown, and then the 4 in the middle that are real. And everything else, these molars, these are each bridges, and the whole top is an implanted bridge as well. So, this was a year's worth of surgeries. It would be a major surgery, wait a month for it to heal. A major surgery, wait 3 months for it to heal. And then as soon as it's healed, okay, now we've got to put the titanium, screws in your jaw. And so it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 surgeries throughout the course of a year to be able to have teeth again.
Yeah.
And it was painful. And as a heroin addict, obviously the only thing I've got is ibuprofen and Tylenol.
Wait, how did your teeth get to that point again?
Part of it was the drugs, right? I mean, obviously meth is bad for your teeth, so is heroin. But I think the vast majority, because I did a lot of meth with a lot of people whose teeth are still great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it was that they had the capability to take care of themselves, right? I didn't. Or if I had the capability, I didn't have the wherewithal to do so. And that started at, also my teeth were always soft. When I was like 8, I broke one of my teeth on a raisin because the pit was still in it. And I bit down and it broke. But I also didn't really take care of my teeth that well then. So a lot of it was just the feelings in here made it so like if I didn't have something really enjoyable to get out of bed, I am not getting out of bed to brush my teeth. I just didn't take care of myself. And as a result, they rotted and rotted and rotted. And then 2017-ish, I started with meth, and that obviously escalates it to where, couldn't eat like a Laffy Taffy without it being like, oh, my tooth has disintegrated. It's a great time. And I became used to this thing that would happen where like the infection would hit or the rot would hit a nerve for a week or two. The pain would be excruciating. And then the nerve would die.
Yeah.
And I would have such relief because one day it's just like, dink, the pain stops. I go, all right, great. Now I can continue doing what I was doing and not worry about it. And then a couple months later, that's the tooth that's disintegrating and chipping apart and falling out of my mouth. But like, whatever, at least it doesn't hurt anymore. But then I've also had moments of clarity where like, I remember I was sitting on a porch with some people trying to smoke some weed and eat some chips. And, had like, I don't know, either a sudden moment of clarity or a meth-induced delusion of like this third person thought of like, wow, watching him eat chips is like watching his 97-year-old toothless grandfather eat chips. I went, oh, I'm 25 at the time probably. And I'm like, I can't even eat potato chips without like gumming it. You know what I mean? Like, so, brief moments of clarity throughout extended periods of insanity.
What does the insanity of addiction look like?
Completely ignoring any and all consequences, either willfully or otherwise. An inability to give a damn about absolutely anything other than the way to stop feeling that I'm feeling. A genuine, consistent, and unending desire to chase the next high, to chase the next change of perception, to chase this no matter what it cost. Am I stealing guns out of my cousin's house? Am I fucking, I don't know, selling off everything that I ever inherited from my grandfather when he passed away? Am I stealing everything that my mother inherited from her grandparents at her property to be able to sell those things away? Like, what am I doing to make this happen, and then not having the capability to feel remorse? Or if I did feel remorse, the immediate reaction to that being, oh God, I feel terrible about this, I better go get high over it again. This absolute just insanity.
And why do people bring up insanity when it comes to addiction?
Because from an outside perspective, that's what it appears to be, right? You take any person in a less extreme manifestation of their human condition, you give them some consequences that are bad enough, or even the threat of consequences that are bad enough, they'll stop doing the thing.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's that widely quoted or even maybe misquoted thing that supposedly Einstein said about, like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that is addiction. Tomorrow I can stop. Tomorrow I can stop. One more time. This next time I'll be able to get through the withdrawals. This next time I can stop. It's only going to be one this time. Whatever the particular lie in that moment has to be in order to justify to myself that I'm going to keep going. And I always actually, even, before and during my addiction, I always disagreed with that, right? Because like that Einstein quote, or maybe it's not even actually an Einstein quote, because to me, I think insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and actually believing that you got a different result. You know what I mean? Like that's real insanity. Like you do the same thing and objectively through other people's vision, you obtain the same result, but you believe that you got a different one. I feel like that's more insanity.
That's funny.
But yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to think if I've ever thought I got a different result.
I don't know. I do remember though when we were talking about you weren't aware that you were an addict, and I remember having that conversation with you in treatment.
Yeah, I literally I wasn't aware until
18, 3 DUIs in 6 months, 2 totaled cars. And we were like, hey, you want to just step back for a second? And you were like, oh shit. I remember you were on the hammock one time, just like unable to come in for group. But I like went out to you and we were chatting about things.
I think, yeah, it was like the group break. I was like, I don't know what happened. It was something in that group that I heard. I don't know why. I just got like extremely emotional. I really don't remember exactly what was going through my head at the time. I honestly can't remember a lot of the things that were going through my head at the time in treatment.
You were barred the fuck out for like 2 years, so like.
Yeah, but it was just hard to really come to terms with being an addict. Yeah, I just don't know why I didn't see that for myself.
Well, I mean, I don't think any of us we don't wake up and go, I'm gonna be an addict and I'm gonna be okay with that. You know what I mean? It's just we go, well, it's the lizard brain. I want to feel good. This innate desire to, I want to feel better than I currently do. And
the way my addiction like really shows up for me, which honestly it hasn't been doing this much recently, but in my early recovery, it was just my head telling me, Laisha, you're not really an addict. Like I would be around hitting a year of sober, and my brain would be like, you could definitely like smoke weed casually or drink occasionally. You know what I mean? That was the way my addiction wanted to creep up, but somehow I've made it to 4 years sober.
And I can see that, right? I mean, my brain sometimes is like, man, a joint would be nice. But I also know my reality that I will, even on marijuana, I will focus on that change of perception to the absolute exclusion of everything in my life. And even if I were able to manage it, the amount of effort that it would take to manage it just doesn't sound worth it anymore.
Yeah. But what I think makes it harder for me is that this is my first time ever trying sobriety and recovery. I've never had that experience of relapse, which I feel like makes it hard, but at the same time, I don't find relapsing worth it or trying it worth it.
So, but I mean, what was your longest stay in jail?
Like literally like a night.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna say like having you detoxed in jail and then gone back to it, that could kind of count, but no.
That's and then like I try and remember moments in my sobriety. Like I used to cry because I didn't have enough money for weed. Like there was a night where I was like, fuck, like I genuinely don't have enough money for weed. And I was really upset about that. So I try and take myself back to those moments. And then there was like maybe like 2 weeks max where I didn't take Xanax, but I was still drinking and smoking, but it was like just waiting for the day that like somebody had Xans available. And like, who knows like how I would have felt if I didn't have alcohol or weed or anything of that nature. But there was definitely always a chase, but I don't think I never really felt the crazy physical symptoms of withdrawal. Mainly more so the mental.
Yeah, and I think that's okay, because I think both of us probably at this time probably share the perspective, like I just said, of like, it wouldn't be worth it to try again.
It's not. Like, why would I want to put myself in a position of just spending hundreds of dollars at the dispensary for weed?
Right.
And then I just think I'm so used to being like clear-minded and like really present, where it's like, I'm scared of not being in control anymore, when that is the exact like extreme opposite of what I was before.
The only thing you wanted before was to be out of control.
Yes, and now I'm like terrified of.
Yeah, this is working. Listen, I don't need to know if it would be possible for me to manage, because all I know is that what is going on now is better than what I had, and better than what it would be if I was expending energy on managing something. You know what I mean? I don't. Why would I fuck with something that's working for the first time in my life? Why would I do that? Yeah.
It blows my mind that it's been 4 years.
It also blows my mind. I think that, like, you are 22 now. You were 18 when I met you.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. I am about to turn 33 in a couple weeks. I was 28 when I got sober. And where our lives are, just in general, the things that have happened over the last 4 years, I'm like, wow. And I'm actually able to reflect. More has happened, and I said this, like, you know, probably on the first podcast like 2.5 years ago or more than that, was like more has happened, you know, in this last short period of time that had happened in the decade beforehand, like genuinely, because my life was going nowhere. Nothing new was happening. And that still definitely holds true. And I get impatient. I want more. Give me more. But
yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like impatient. Like, what's going on?
give me more. I want more money. I want an easier life. I don't want to do any work. I want all these things. But like, no, hold up. Look at all the shit that has been accomplished in the last 4 years. Who the fuck am I to demand more? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like recently I've been in a state of almost like the agoraphobic normal person that you were talking about earlier. Or almost, yeah, I forgot what you were saying about it. It was
people who, rather than, you know, it's sometimes I've known people who will just cut themselves off from the outside world, cut off people who've made them uncomfortable or that they disagree with, eliminate negative, well, stimuli that are interpreted as negative from their lives entirely, rather than just, you know, deal with and accept reality for what it is, and people around them. And
I don't know why I've been doing it. I think, the uncomfortability of like my situation and my environment. I've just like not socializing and leaving my house, and it's just been the most comfortable thing for me recently, and I can't seem to break out of it. But right now I'm at a point, like today, I've really felt like, it's gonna have to be over soon because there's change that needs to be made.
Right. And I think we do that, right? We have our little experiences. We're like, no, I'm going to sit in my little zone for a little while, and I'm just going to wait and see what there is to. Maybe we're just waiting for the universe to make something happen, even though we fucking know better at this point. Like, no, it's not going to happen unless you go do it. Or maybe it's just like, okay, you know, my foot's been on the pedal for a long time. I need to step back for a second, reassess, allow myself to grow some new perspectives on some different things. And I think sometimes it is okay to have those experiences, you know, those little bit of periods, little periods of like, I don't know, isolation or solitude or, you know, maybe just a little bit more of a passive lifestyle instead of quite so active. And I think that's all right to just see what the universe throws at you for a little bit, see what's coming to sit. And it can't all just be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I swear to God, that was not a Nazi salute. I'm not Elon. That was an expression of a graph.
No, yeah. And that's another thing. Obviously, like we kind of learned that very early on, that recovery is not just exponential growth.
What was it they told us in rehab? Rainbows and blowjobs?
Yeah, rainbows and blowjobs. It's like now you're at a point where you're going to have to really learn how to deal and cope with the shitty moments.
Yeah. And that's all right.
And it's a blessing. Like, moments. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today, Tristan.
I appreciate being back. It has been a delight. I think this is a lot more successful than the last time we attempted to, which was an absolute shit show. But
the world will never see it.
The world will never see that one. It's fine.
No, but yeah, I really appreciate you. I'm glad you're in Baltimore.
Yeah, and I'm glad I've made a trip down for a few days here and get to see you and the other people who I absolutely adore. And thank you guys for coming up to my baby shower the other day.
Yeah, of course.
Went from drug addict to dad real fucking quick. Not sure how that happened, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I love you.
I love you too.